This is Heartbeat Christian Academy, and you are doing a course named Computer Essentials. And welcome once again to this course, because I do believe that it's going to add great value to your life. If you want to support our ministry, there's the banking details. And if you need to contact us to get notes or any other information, there's the cell number and also the email address. Now let's get into the manual. I just want to show you. As I mentioned last lecture, we're starting section 4 and we're going to be talking about operating systems. So we'll get straight to operating systems, and let's get to our slideshow, and then we can ask ourselves a few questions there as we go through this. Now, the operating system, or OS, is a special computer program that is essential to the efficient running of all the programs within the computer. So essentially, without an OS or an operating system, your computer is non-functional. It doesn't function. The operating system carries out tasks, key press instructions and controls which operations within the computer are carried out in which order. Some common operating systems are Windows, Linux, and Macintosh. Now, Macintosh is very well known on the Apple side because it's the Apple operating system. Linux is open source, so many of you might not have heard of Linux, but Linux is something that's developed by a community, so it's not something that you really pay for. But the most popular operating system in the world is the Windows operating system done by Microsoft. And I've just shown you some of the Windows icons there, starting off with Windows 3.1 here at the bottom, which was just after MS-DOS. Now, MS-DOS is not a GUI, a graphic user interface. It was something that you typed in the command line. We'll talk about that a bit later. And Windows 3.1 was a DOS shell operating system, so it's actually ran on DOS, but they built a shell on top of it, so it wasn't the total GUI, but it did have some icons. Then Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows ME, Windows 7, Windows 8, and then Windows 10. So these are just some of the versions of operating systems that Microsoft has released over the past few years. You can also see sort of the estimated dates here, where you can see how the versions were released, and Windows sort of 3.13 was the 1990s, and then 95 was in 95, 98 was in 98, 2000 was in 2000, ME was in 2000, and then XP, Vista, 7, 8, and then obviously 10. So you can see it's been quite a development, quite a number of years of development of operating systems, and for us to understand the operating system is critical. A lot of customers ask me the question, what operating system do I have on my computer? It's actually quite a common question that people ask me. You know what, if you go in Windows 10 to your search icon there and you type in computer, the word computer, you'll notice there's a little icon coming up there, computer. If you then right click on that and you go to properties, it will actually show you a lot of information here. But one of the things that it will show you on top there is what operating system do you have on your system, and this one is, say, Windows 10 Home. It will also show you your processor. So we were talking about the specifications, the processor speed, and this processor version. This is an i7 7770, which means it's a 7th generation i7 and 16 gigs RAM, and this is a 64-bit operating system. Sometimes you might get asked that. I don't want to really get into that too much, but that's just some information for you that's handy to have. I believe it's something that we need to have and know about. So that's how you see what operating system you have. A lot of customers ask me that, and now I hope that once you've done the search there, you've gone to computer, you've right-clicked and you said properties, you will know where to find all your computer specifications. Well, basically everything. You find there the CPU, you find the RAM, you find the version of the operating system, and you also find, if it's 64-bit or 32-bit. And then the only other place, when you double click on my computer, you can also go and right click on the hard drive and see what the size of the hard drive is. And then you know your entire specification of your computer. The operating systems also had requirements. So a lot of times you could not load an operating system on an inferior system. So when an operating system comes out, the OS comes out, the Windows 10 or Windows 8 or Windows 7, they all have different requirements. I mean, if I remember XP, the requirements were extremely low, 32 meg RAM. And then Windows 10 came out and they said a minimum of 2 gigs memory. And actually, when you put 2 gig memory in Windows 10, you find that 2 gigs are used up straight away, especially if you're running cloud storage and you're not running Google Drive and a lot of the other applications that you get. So that's just a bit on operating systems. Then let's just talk about the post test. When the computer is switched on, it carries out a power on self test. That's a post test. And maybe you've seen this screen before. This is American Megatrend's BIOS, basic input output system, but depending on your motherboard manufacturer, you will have a different post test screen. But this is just a test. So it says here, it will actually, it's ROM software, read-only memory, and it will test. This process ensures that all the hardware components are running and that the CPU memory are functioning correctly. A series of beeps denotes detection errors. So a lot of times, if you have beeps coming up, so you have a beep, 1 beep, 2 beeps, if you look at your motherboard's manufacturer, you can actually find out what exactly that beep means. Sometimes the beep means that the RAM is faulty, or it can mean various things. But your motherboard manufacturer, if you Google or you go into your or you open up your manual and you look, if you've got the manual of your mainboard, it will tell you what the beeps normally mean, because that comes from the basic input output system, the BIOS, which does a post test, a power on self test. Now, the reason we're saying this is because this is also part of the way that the computer is loading all the hardware, ensuring that all the hardware is right before it loads your operating system. Remember, without an OS, your computer is pretty useless. You can't do anything. Even we'll learn in the next lesson about applications. Even applications can't work until you've installed your operating system properly. Just to mention also that the operating system also requires drivers. So every device that you have, not RAM and hard drives, but I'm talking about other devices, like for instance your audio chip on your main board to hear audio, your LAN chip that causes you to have a network port, or the wireless, and the graphics chip on the main board. They all require drivers to be loaded in the operating system. Sometimes the operating system does it itself, but most of the time the manufacturer of your main board, of your motherboard of your computer, will give you a disk, or at least supply them online. So that's just an interesting section there. Now, why are we saying this? Because we get to a point, as the second function of the boot operation gets, it starts copying the files and looking for a boot partition. So a boot sector where the boot files, the boot up files are for the operating system. So sometimes you will see errors on your computer where it says no bootable devices found. A lot of times that is when the master boot record on the cylinder in the boot sector has gone faulty or corrupt, or the hard drive has failed. Sadly, a lot of users that see this error loses all their data. So maybe it's a good time to mention to you that I recommend that you back up your data, and I recommend this to myself as well. We have to back up data regularly, because there are viruses and applications that actually attacks that, specifically the master boot record, to ensure that your OS can't boot, your operating system can't boot. And that means you are going to get stuck at a screen. I've given you a little picture here on the side, but you will get stuck on a screen that looks like that. Then just to mention what a graphics user face is, a GUI, that is what you're seeing there on the screen there now. You have the opportunity to click on icons. You can take your mouse, you can hover over your mouse, and you can double click on icons to open programs. That is a GUI. And that is what was so wonderful when the Microsoft operating system started developing the graphics user interface, and also the Apple Macintosh, and even now Linux has a GUI. Before that, you actually had to type in everything in the command line. So you had to know, like now, for instance, I can go and explore files. I can explore and I can find files. But in the olden days, when it was still not a GUI, I had to go into DOS or something to that effect. I saw you can see that at the bottom, that is the command prompt. And then I would have to know what command to type in there to see what files were on my hard drive. So I would, for instance, there I'd have to type in to get a directory of my hard drive. So things have really changed, and now we don't see this screen anymore in our OS. And it's developed to the point where we are actually now seeing a graphic user interface, and we can just click on icons, which makes it much easier. So operating systems, as I said to you, we've gone a long way for many years, since the 90s and even before. Operating systems have been in development. If you can look what they can do now, it's tremendous. Another course that we do at the Academy is where we talk about the Windows operating system, and that's a dedicated course just on the operating system. Here in Computer Essentials, it's essential for you to know what an operating system is, to understand that we didn't always have operating systems, to understand that there will be a post test, and then it will search for the boot record and then boot the operating system. Once the operating system is operational, it will take you to your desktop, and from there you can navigate via the start menu or the icons by using a GUI, a graphics user interface. Very nice. You also know now where to go and to check what version of operating system you have. So a lot of times you will say to your computer vendor or to your computer repair guy over the phone, maybe, I've got a problem, my operating system is slow. The first thing they will ask you is, what operating system do you have? And then you say, I don't know, like most customers say. No, now you do know. You go to the search bar at the bottom, as I showed you. You type in computer there, and once you see the little computer coming up in the search field, you right click and you go to properties, and then right on top you can see exactly what operating system you have. Now, the latest operating system at the recording of this lecture now is Windows 10. And what we do find is that there's always improvements in the new operating systems, and also as the operating systems get outdated, so you might be running Windows XP or Windows 7, you will find more and more of your software will not work, the applications. And we're going to be talking about applications in the next section, but note this now, that if you allow yourself to get outdated too far back, a lot of the applications will not work properly on your old operating system. For instance, even banking, and especially things that come with the operating system. And again, we discussed these in the other course, but when you're talking about your web browser, where you browse the internet, it's normally, most of them, you get Internet Explorer and Edge, that's part of Windows 10. You get third-party or separate browsers like Google Chrome and that. But say, for instance, you're using Internet Explorer to do banking, and your operating system is now Windows 7, your banker will tell you that it no longer supports that version of Explorer, because as they are developing the newer operating systems, all those applications also need to be upgraded. So ensure that you stay current. With regards to operating system maintenance, you can update your operating system regularly. In Windows 10, there's no longer an option to say you don't want to update. So even if you are data restricted, the system will still update your operating system consistently. So I'm giving you more information than you need to know, but I'm doing this so that you can have the power of knowing. Like I said, this is what the DOS interface looked like. And we had to learn all the different commands, how to copy a file. You would have to learn, how do I type out copy a file and then the file name, or how to delete the file, how do I identify the file deleted, to see the files, how to type the directory. And then there were also applications that ran in DOS, and many of them also worked from command lines. So that meant that the user actually had to learn a lot, where today we don't have that problem anymore. So that's been this lesson. and on operating systems. And as I say, for more information, look for the course on operating systems here on Heartbeat Christian Academy. If you want to know more detail about the operating system, that is where you're going to find it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson, which is going to be lesson 15, where we're going to be looking at application software. God bless.